Hi everyone, it finally happened. E1M1 has a new champion. For almost 4 years, Jukebox had held both the easy and nightmare skill records on Quake's most prestigious map. Last year, Kissimoff squeezed past Jukebox by a single tenth of a second on the easy skill leaderboards, just barely improving the iconic run. But now, perhaps even more astonishingly, Kissimoff has managed to get a new full-second world record on Nightmare skill, beating what is probably the most agonizing and RNG-heavy speedrun in the entire game. In this video, I'll break down the new 22-second Nightmare skill run and what makes Kissimoff's achievement so special. I hope you like it. Anyone with a passing interest in Quake speedrunning will know about Jukebox's 19-second E1M1 record on easy skill. It represents everything the majority of speedrunners love about Quake. Every jump, every turn, every single movement in this flawless run is perfectly planned and performed. It's the benchmark for what is possible in Quake, and although history is unkind to people who claim speedruns are unbeatable, it's safe to say that the 19-second barrier will never be broken. On Nightmare skill, E1M1 is truly a different story. Historically, all hope of perfect execution goes out the window, and one factor becomes more important than anything else: luck. No matter how bad you think the enemies on E1M1 might be, I guarantee they're worse. The Nightmare run of this map is quite possibly the most random and luck-dependent run in the entire game, and the history of this category is basically just a history of speedrunners being shot in the face, or being attacked by dogs, or bumping into enemies wandering randomly across the player's path after restarting for the 10,000th time. In the 6 months after his easy skill run, Jukebox then chipped away at the Nightmare run, finally achieving the incredible time of 23 seconds in January 2020, beating a 16-year-old record by the old-school bunny god Kay Bernstein. In fact, throughout that year, Jukebox took all 4 records on E1M1, the any percent and 100% runs on both easy and nightmare skill. He held this clean sweep of the map for more than 3 years. Kay's nightmare run from 2004 was already something special. Previous record holders were still getting knocked off course, blocked, or stuck on their way to the exit. Movement tricks were limited to a few basic bunnies, because as soon as you built up any speed, you would lose it due to a stray bullet. In Kay's run, we saw glimpses of what could be possible if you ignored enemies and simply prayed that some of them would miss their shots or get out of your way. Kay takes very few hits from the grunts, and in particular these final enemies, who constantly thwart runners at the end of their attempts, parted like the Red Sea as Kay sailed past them. The frustrating thing about this map is that a perfect run is essentially impossible, but while doing attempts, runners will hit small RNG miracles, allowing high speeds or a perfect path, which are then never to be experienced again. To get the record, you have to have lightning-fast reaction times, adjusting to the random enemy positions and adapting your path accordingly. Jukebox tried to push the map to its limits. He already had far more experience on this map than any other player in history, and he was able to include longer and faster bunny sequences and more optimized pathing, while waiting for the impossible luck required to get through the map unscathed. When he finally hit this incredible 23-second run, most players, including Jukebox himself, agreed that a further second improvement just wasn't going to happen. The run wasn't strictly perfect, but perfect is simply not possible. This was the craziest luck anyone had ever seen on E1M1 in 20 years, and it would take a special kind of madman to attempt anything further. Kissimoff is a special kind of madman. He's the current world record holder in Half-Life, and he's one of an ever-growing list of players who have brought their skill set over from that game to Quake and started crushing long-standing records. In an act of insanity, One of the first things he attempted in Quake was to match Jukebox's 19-second easy skill run on E1M1. While the official SDA tables only recognize full second records, speedrun.com does keep track of every improvement, no matter how small. Last year, Kissimoff became the fastest player on E1M1 with a 0.1 second improvement to Jukebox's iconic run. This is an insane achievement for a new player. Keep in mind that Jukebox needed something like 70,000 attempts for his run, and Kissimoff spent a similar amount of time just to save a single tenth of a second. Kissimoff is also no stranger to RNG. His first two official Quake records contain some of the most utterly maddening luck-based tricks ever performed. First, this 1 in a million trick on E4M7, where a spawn glitches through solid bars and bumps into an underwater button on the other side, opening the path to the exit. Second, he did the most difficult FPS trick in the game on E2M5, glitching through the descending bars of this elevator, a trick which takes tens of thousands of attempts to land even a single time. This run was a 4-second improvement over a Jukebox demo, something which has never happened before or since, and Kissimoff said that the run was 100 times more difficult than matching his time on E1M1. So, he clearly had the skills to equal the best players in the game. He also had the mindset to grind for near impossible RNG. What other next step could there be for Kissimoff than to tackle the holy grail of both, Jukebox's 23-second E1M1 Nightmare Run? I can already hear some of you asking, how bad can the RNG really be? I realize that watching these records and highlights with their miraculous luck can give the wrong impression. So I'll try to break a few things down. Let's just walk casually through the map while ignoring the enemies and see what happens. Almost inevitably, it will look something like this. The grunts see you, hit you multiple times, and you die. Grunt shots can very occasionally be a good thing. In my video on E2M1, we saw a grunt boost just barely push chambers over a new full second barrier. But 99% of the time, a grunt shot on E1M1 means getting knocked off your path or being slowed down to a crawl, and the run is over. Every room in the level is full of these enemies. Every one of them is a sharpshooter, and every one of them moves around the level in a completely unpredictable fashion. To beat Jukebox, Kissimoff needed to more or less attempt an easy run style route, pretending that the enemies don't exist, and keeping speed from long bunny sequences across a pre-planned path. Doing this on Nightmare skill is the pure definition of torture. Most runs don't get past this first room. Kissimoff was kind enough to send me a pile of demos he kept of some of the more interesting failures he had during his attempts. Watching just this small selection hurts my soul, to say nothing of the thousands upon thousands of attempts which are basically just start, jump, get shot, restart. Here are just a few examples of how this map will push you to the brink of madness, along with some of Kissimoff's comments about them. How are you feeling watching these so far? Are you getting a sense of what it feels like to grind this map? Maybe you still have some hope or optimism left. Let's destroy that by looking in more detail just at the very last room. Here are a bunch of Kissimoff's demos where he defied all the odds, playing perfectly and being blessed by the RNG gods all the way through the level until he reached the final room at world record pace. All that's left to do is to walk up this ramp and into the exit. Sounds easy, doesn't it? Are you tearing your hair out yet? Remember that the odds of even reaching this last area on pace are probably 1,000 to 1, if not less. After months of grinding, failing thousands of times in every way possible, and after hitting countless 23-second demos, on the 22nd of May 2024, Kissimoff finally hit this run. This is the first time the world had seen a run like this on E1M1. The speed he keeps after exiting this elevator all the way to the last button is simply unbelievable. Only one enemy hits him, and it even gives him a small boost from the back. In the final corridors, he gets a second huge boost and finds a perfect angle between the last grunts. Compare this to Jukebox's run. Jukebox is famous for grinding out impossible strats, but even he wasn't willing to attempt a single bunny sequence through E1M1. His demo looks very safe and conservative next to Kissimoff's. He stops his jump sequence several times throughout the run, spending more time hugging walls and shooting enemies in order to minimize the chances of getting blocked or knocked off course. Now look at Kissimoff's demo again and watch him sailing past Jukebox through the early rooms. He must have mind-controlled the enemies somehow as he flew past them. Watch these clips and keep an eye out on how many shots are missing their target. And this is on Nightmare skill, where the grunts are especially accurate. Or look at the first-person demo again and watch some of the enemy shots. How did this grunt miss his shot? So, Kissimoff made it through the level using God-tier movement and perfect luck. I hope I've made it clear just how much of an insane accomplishment this is. However, having said this, unfortunately, I don't think the pain of E1M1 is finished forever. Sometimes a run is so good or so lucky that you can't help but see the potential for a further improvement, no matter how unlikely it might be. For me, this is that kind of run. On easy skill, the best runners can consistently bunny hop their way to a 21-second run without using the famous box boost. Prasco has even hit a 20-second run with the aid of a perfect grunt boost. Kissimoff's new Nightmare record is a 22.5, and despite the incredible movement and RNG, he actually still gets stuck twice during his run. First when he has too much speed here after the button sequence, and again for a fraction of a second on the exit teleporter. If you were to take the already impossible luck from this run, get even luckier, and then run completely perfectly, we can see that it's theoretically possible to hit a 21-second record. The odds are astronomically low, but with speedrunning, you simply never know. For now though, we have a new champion of E1M1, and this run will go down in history as one of the game's craziest achievements. Congrats Kissimoff, and GG.